With the play-in tournament officially coming to a conclusion, last video, I talked about exactly what the NBA season has taught us so far. But of course, that's not the end. We still have disappointments to definitely touch on, surprises to talk about, trades that's been historically great, and much more. So shout out to everyone asking for this part 2, and most importantly, look out for my playoff prediction video early tomorrow morning, right before the playoffs kicks off. Today's video is sponsored by Manscaped. April is Testicular Cancer Awareness Month, which is why I wanted to take a brief second to talk about men's health issues that really should be important to all of us guys. Did you know one man every hour every day is diagnosed with testicular cancer? In fact, testicular cancer is actually the most common form of cancer for men's ages 15 through 35. That's most of the guys that view my channel. Manscaped has partnered with the Testicular Cancer Society to really help you take care of yourself down there. To help remind you guys to get checked for testicular cancer, you can get their special edition TCS Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer for a limited time only. It's only 10,000 of these. It comes with special TCS branding, and you'll be supporting a special cause for us men. To purchase their special TCS Lawnmower 4.0 to support this cause, or for more info on how you can perform simple routine self-checkups at home, visit manscaped.com/TCS. Click the link in my description right now, or use my promo code SWISH at checkout for 20% off of your first order plus free shipping. Big shout out to Manscaped for always looking out for the channel, and most definitely my guys.
It's going to be some work that we have to do because you just take a look at what the lineups could potentially look like. You put another big next to Ben, then you got to figure out what the spacing is around him. Then if you put a playmaker next to him, then you got to figure out what Ben looks like without the basketball. Then if you go small with Ben, then you got to figure out, can you rebound enough with him? All right, so the challenges are ahead of us. We'll look them head on. We'll figure it out. We have the personnel to figure it out. Whether it is me mixing and matching throughout different pieces of the game and allowing him to have a group and run with a group, that part we'll figure out. But you see the challenges that lie ahead.
I hinted at this topic at the end of last video, but Ben Simmons is probably on the worst contract in basketball. Last year, we all know the story. The 76ers basically hurt his feelings going back to the 2021 playoffs where he completely folded, and he was actually sensitive enough to hold that grudge going into the following season. Even with that being the situation and him being completely unprofessional, I still thought that man got absolutely blessed going back to last year's deadline. Ben Simmons wound up in a place that on paper looked like the most ideal fit possible. Brooklyn desperately needed a versatile defender to put on players like Giannis, Kawhi, LeBron, etc., and he was supposed to fit that role. Also, they could use Ben on fast breaks for easy instant offense, and with the spacing Brooklyn had, the fit should have been as seamless as possible. But as we know, this season it's been a complete mess for Ben Simmons. Jock Vaughn essentially called this man unplayable in that clip, in which he really is. And with the players they have that truly bring value, not trying to force his value, the only justifiable reason you would really have to play Ben Simmons is because he's on a big contract. I know Ben is probably not healthy. He's reportedly had injuries, mental hurdles, all that, but this man has basically regressed in everything. I'm not even going to waste too much time on Ben because at this point, he's really irrelevant. But this season proved Ben Simmons, given the flash early potential that we've seen, is possibly the most disappointing first pick in NBA history. But Zion Williamson may actually have an argument for that last statement. Although Zion's struggles haven't been as self-inflicted as I believe Ben's has, he's proven that he's never going to be that life-changing, franchise-altering, reliable first option that he was drafted to be. This season, this man has basically only played a third of the season. And like I said in a recent video, when he's played, he's been incredible. You can just see how dominant and ferocious he is, only at 6'6", first in points in the paint. Even going back to his rookie year, he's always top 2 in that category. When he was actually there, which is always a flash in the pan, the Pelicans were a top seed in the West, and they had the second best offense in the league when Zion was on the floor. And to me, and I said this in my Zion video, what makes him so damn frustrating is how good of a team the Pelicans are even in his absence. After Zion got hurt earlier in this season, It looked like the Pelicans' season, aspirations, championship hopes, all of that had literally collapsed. In fact, from the time he got hurt all the way up until February, they had one of the worst records in the NBA, only beside teams that's tanking. Most of that was without Zion, Ingram, and Alvarado, so that was just a very rough patch in their season. But since March, where they began to get healthy, they've had one of the best records in the West. 3 players averaging an efficient 20 a night, most notably Trey Murphy. He's become like a mini star in Zion's absence. They've had the second best defense in the league, first in the West. They finished 2 games above 500, and oh yeah, they made the play-in. All this set the stage for at least a possible return of Zion, but reportedly, although he feels physically fine, mentally he's not there, so he can't compete with his team. I don't know how long they can keep doing this. This is year 4, and this man is literally a liability. The Kings-Pacers trade was most definitely a win-win. I'm not going to talk about the Kings side of it because I've touched on that enough, and we know Sabonis obviously transformed that team. They're the 3rd seed. But I want to talk about Tyrese Haliburton. Since putting on a Pacers jersey, Tyrese is averaging the 2nd most assists a night, only at 22 years old. He quietly just became the first player ever to average 20 and 10 a night, shooting 40% from deep. And guess what? He's most definitely the new point guard. Even with him averaging the 2nd most assists per game this year, he's 43rd in turnovers a night, top 10 in assist to turnover ratio. And if this season isn't impressive enough, okay, let's look at it from a historic point of view. Since the merger, these are all the players that average 20 and 10 in a season. Tyrese is averaging the least amount of turnovers alongside the original point guard, and he's shooting the most efficiently. He probably just had the most efficient 20 and 10 season in modern NBA history. Jimmy Butler's prime, it's been disgustingly sabotaged in Miami. I'm sorry. I keep hearing analysts talk about Miami and how scary they are, but can we please stop acting like they're this big, bad, scary team that nobody wants to face, because they're not. Like, they're just not. In reality, they're a bunch of overachievers that's bought into a very good culture. I truly believe that. Okay, last year, they made the Eastern Conference Finals, but how exactly did they make it? Jimmy Butler had to have the most 40-point games out of anybody in the entire playoffs. Look at the other 2 players that also had more than one 40-point game. 2 players that didn't have enough collective offensive help last playoffs, just like Jimmy Butler last playoffs and this year. This season, Miami basically ran it back with those nasty contracts that they're not going to be able to get rid of, and their offense is laughably bad as a result. Jimmy Butler just quietly had probably the best season of his career. Top 10 in damn near every advanced metric, top 2 in steals. Miami has a top 10 offense when he's on the floor, one of the worst when he's off. He's one of the highest offensive rating players individually in the NBA. And guess what? It's meant absolutely nothing. Collectively, they scored the least amount of points a night. They're one of the worst teams from the field, one of the worst teams from deep. They're small, so they get killed on the glass. They're small, so they can't block shots. They're old, so they play at an extremely slow pace. They're old, so they don't score in transition and get easy buckets. They play a half-court style, yet they don't have reliable half-court offensive players outside of Jimmy Butler. Like, it's a miracle that they're this good. Next year, they have all this money tied into this extremely mid-core. That's nasty, and that's just wasting Jimmy Butler's prime. The Clippers, who I don't see winning a championship this year, they messed up 4 years ago. Now, honestly, not really, because the trade made sense at that time, still kind of does, and hindsight is always 20/20. But to lose all of this for possibly another early playoff exit is just sad. This season, SGA has the most 30-point games out of everybody. Even though he's not averaging the most points, or he doesn't have the most total points, he has the most 30-point games. He's one of the youngest players since the 2000s to ever average 30. And simply, I believe he's a better basketball player at this point than Paul George ever was, with all due respect. I know it's not all shade, because they've drafted pretty well with players like Josh Giddey, who's developed, Jalen Williams, who made a real run at Rookie of the Year. But this season, look at the top 5 youngest teams in the league, and then look at their record, and then look at OKC's record. They're not supposed to be here. Just for comparison's sakes, look at the top 5 oldest teams in the NBA. This is typically how the NBA works. OKC this year, they're 16.5 games over their projected preseason odds. That's the most out of any team this season. Again, that's the effect this man's development has truly had on that franchise. Clippers fans, I still respect and understand the move, but OKC 4 years later, they definitely came out better. And lastly, and I'll keep this brief because I'm honestly burned out from Dallas, the Mavericks, they're a joke of a franchise right now. From the Jalen Brunson contract they missed out on, to Mark Cuban disgracefully blaming this man's family, continuing to push future free agents away from that organization, from them continuing to bless the Knicks for some odd reason, blessed them with Tyson Chandler basically a decade ago, basically blessed them with Jalen Brunson last year, possibly your first round pick this year for a player you no longer have, to them quitting on the season while they still had a shot, playing Luka in the first quarter, hurting his averages. I don't understand why you would do that. Desperately gambling on Kyrie just for it to be a disaster and he might not return. To 6 years ago, they drafted Dennis Smith Jr. over Donovan Mitchell and then traded him in that package for Porzingis, which is the package in which the Knicks can possibly get their first round pick this year. Like, when I look at their last decade, I don't know if they've done anything right outside of land Luka and land Jalen Brunson, in which they didn't believe in. That organization is a disaster. If you guys like this video, if you made it this far, comment your MVP. Mine is Joel Embiid, and I want to hear yours. Stay tuned tomorrow morning for my playoff predictions. I'm dropping that. Follow my social media sites, turn on post notifications, do all that great stuff, guys. And until next time, as always, stay tuned.